Hey everybody, Happy New Year. First episode of the new year, January 4th, which is my older brother Brooks, aka Budgie's birthday, so happy birthday. And my nephew Connor's birthday. It's pretty cool. Time flies. It was just a year ago, yesterday, that Leo, my grandfather, passed. The year went really fast. There was a lot of uncertainty last year. I feel actually very optimistic about this year for the state of the country and the world. And knowing that I'm going to be doing what I have to do to lead those that I have to lead. Today, I'm going to go over the first 5 crazy years of Newell Strength. I realize a lot of people don't know the history of Newell Strength, yet I also realize that it can be inspiring to hear other people's journeys. The reason this popped into my head was a couple weeks ago, Suga Shane sent me and my brothers, the other brothers, there's 4 of us, a podcast to listen to. And I was driving to the gym for the Saturday morning workout. And I didn't, check it when I was driving. When we got there, he said, "You see the podcast I sent? You listened to it?" I said, "I didn't listen yet. Which one was it?" Because that was when you did the story of Newell Strength on your podcast. Like, I don't know when that was. Maybe last year, a couple of years ago. And I was like, I should do that again. I'll break it down into chunks. And it's also the new year. So, time for new beginning, right? So let me dive into this. As always, I won't keep you too long. When I was a kid, let me start there. I have a picture over there when I was about a year and a half, or maybe 13 months, sitting underneath a barbell in Michigan. My dad was an athlete, but he wasn't, at that time, right? Weightlifting wasn't a big thing. So that picture right there is kind of, I think, a sign of what I was destined to do. So we got that picture over there. When we moved to New Jersey in the late 80s, early 90s, me and my brother started a landscaping business. We would cut lawns and we do mulch, basic stuff. And I loved it. I learned about being an entrepreneur. I have those flyers somewhere, some of the original ones, which I have to find. We would drop them off at people's houses. We bought a used tractor, which was a big deal at the time for us. Had a little cart. We'd put the push mower in there. Actually, the first year, we just used a push mower on some of these gigantic yards. And, man, that was tough, back-breaking work. And I would charge people we would, like $20, $25 was a big, that was a big account for us. And the next couple of years, we'd grow it. We would drop off flyers. We'd knock on doors, do anything we had to do. And our proximity was basically our neighborhood and 2 surrounding neighborhoods because we had to drive the tractor there, right? So that's what had to be done. And I remember loving that feeling of being in control and ownership of a business. And at the time, guys, I was 10, 11 years old. We had shirts made. The main competitor at that time, which is funny when you think about it, was this kid, Keith Conkis, who now owns a 9-figure construction business. And we would go back and forth, right? I'm not surprised he had the success he did. I mean, this kid was a hustler, and he was my age. This kid was hustling. He used to come in on his big Cub Cadet lawnmower, and man, how am I going to compete with this guy? So anyway, did that for a number of years. Fast forward through college, went to college, fitness management, came out, worked with JV at Rutgers, strength and conditioning, did my internship. Went right back to school after that first summer for my phys ed certification at Kane. At the time, I was competing in natural bodybuilding shows. Mid-2000s, 2005, 6, when I actually officially started teaching, got hired by Bridgewater Raritan School District. I was running the weight room over there in Bridgewater. Started volunteering there. They offered me the spot within 2 years, and I turned it down. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I just loved training. I loved training myself. I loved learning about training. I loved training the athletes. But right when I started teaching, I was stricken by this mysterious disease, for lack of a better term, which pretty much crippled me as a person for over 2 years. Right, over 2 years. It was actually, that began in 2005, right? 2005. And I was depressed, man. I went to a deep state of depression. 2006, I'm just miserable, got no life. I'm teaching, I'm going home. I stopped going to the gym. Probably lost about 40 pounds. And I wasn't that big to begin with at that point. So it was pretty significant. I remember people were worried about me, some of my really good friends and my mom. And it was really just it was in my head, right? It was, I'll do a whole nother podcast about that, but needless to say, not that I was imagining it, but, I had surgeries, I had all this stuff. 2006, coming right, this time of year, it was just before it turned to New Year. I said, man, I've got nothing to do with my life. I'm miserable. Let me compete again. Because I'd taken a couple years off from bodybuilding because of this disease. So I'm just going to start competing again. And without getting too much into the disease aspect, because I think that's a fascinating story in itself, and the story of recovery from that, I started reading a lot. I started getting ready for the contest. Started reading a lot. Started reading Tony Robbins. And that sparked an interest in me. I said, man, this guy is motivating the heck out of me. Started focusing on my show, and I'm reading at night. Just reading. Needless to say, by the time I got to my contest, my disease was gone. But I was ready to take on the world. Right, I was ready to go. And I said, I'm going to start my own business because, I know that's kind of in my heart, and I did it as a kid. So it was between a landscaping business, because I had already done that as a kid, and that was a passion of mine, just being outside in the fields and in grass, and just love being outside. And a personal training business. Why personal training? Because every time I was training at the gym, people would come up to me and say, what are you doing? Like, where are you learning this stuff? And this is before CrossFit. I remember I had people ask me, what are you doing? Is that CrossFit? So what is CrossFit? I don't even know what that is. So I started my training methodology. Really, that started in 1999. I was deep interest. I was really studying this stuff. I was training myself in the high school gym at the local YMCA. So it was between those two businesses. And I went as far as to get a name picked out, Four Brothers Landscaping. Had a business plan for that. And I said, I'm going to go personal training. Let me do that. Let me start with that. And Newell Strength actually started as Champion's Choice Personal Training. And we'll have new hats coming out soon for that. I think they were picked up yesterday with the old gorilla logo. That was the original logo, was this gorilla logo. Champion's Choice Personal Training. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing as far as business. I had no idea where my first client was going to come from. I had a buddy put together a website. And lo and behold, now my sister-in-law, Lynn, who I grew up with, her sister, Jocelyn, and her husband were my first two clients. They lived down in Washington, D.C. They knew, I was really into this stuff. So we're going to hire you, write us a program, put together our nutrition. I said, all right, man, I got my first two. So just kind of, I had the faith to take action, had my first two clients. But as the year was progressing, right, and I'm starting to really invest in my education as far as training, going to seminars, ordering DVDs, books, everything, you name it. That was my life. I would wake up, I would study the business of personal training. I would listen to these old audio CDs. I would study training. I would apply it. I would write about it. All this type of stuff. But I remember coming up until like late December that year. Right? So late December. So let's say 2007. So that's when it started, right? I remember talking to my principal when I was teaching, who I'm still good buddies with. And I was like, man, I just want to train people, and I don't know where to find them, and I'll just train people for free because my heart was on fire for training people. And at that time, guys, I'm in my mid-20s at this point. I remember I was still living at home with my parents, right, at that time, dropping flyers off once again. I'd ride my bike at night around the local neighborhoods, and I would put flyers in the mailboxes. Somebody called, and I put something in the teachers union in Bridgewater. They had like an online magazine. I put an ad in there, got somebody from that. So now I start expanding, right? I start driving to a couple people's houses when it was like this type of weather, freezing, and I would train them in the garage. I'd be freezing. I'd be teaching all day, train a couple people in their garages, go home, study more, training. Then word starts getting out. I'm trying different marketing things. I'm starting to learn about marketing. I'm really starting to try to learn about business. And it starts growing. And from the car, my parents let me build a studio in their basement, 200 square foot studio, which is actually, if you guys are watching on Facebook, I'm going to show you. That is the original right there. It says, best way to get things done is to simply begin. But that's the original. We called it the Pit. And it kind of became the next couple of years like this mythical place to train. People started hearing about it around town and at the gym. And I was doing a lot of my own training in there. I would still go train at the gym sometimes, just for a different environment. The big box gym, I should say, which was a great place at the time. Started growing, right? Started training people down there. Started training for a couple years. Now, as my clientele starts picking up, I start training people before school in the basement. So my poor parents, people come to the house, 5 in the morning, dogs barking, take them down, train them, maybe train myself real quick, go to school, teach, come back, train people pretty much from 3:30, 4 o'clock till 9 at night. I'm doing this basically Monday through Friday. Fridays I would wrap up around 7, and then Saturday mornings I would fit people in. Starts going, and there's a few times I start burning out. I'm like, man, I can't keep, doing this. This is nuts. And a couple of times I remember being like, I'm just gonna stop, because at the time it was one-on-one. Went to another seminar, workshop, learned about this small group or semi-private training. So okay, maybe I could try that, where I train a few people at once. They each have their own program, but it's gonna allow me more time. And I pitched the idea to them, and everybody's cool with it. I'm like, all right, so let's do that. Keep going. Now, by 2010, so I have my notes here, starting to get burned out again, and I'm pretty much ready to throw in the towel. I'm like, I did this. At that time, me and Devin were dating. I'd actually applied at Boise State, who had a really good, they still have a good football program at the time, really good football program. I applied for a strength and conditioning spot out there. Still working with the Rutgers guys here and there. Really just dabbling in a lot of stuff in the field. And anyhow, almost throwing the towel. Still reading a lot of motivational stuff. And at one of my best friend's weddings in 2010, another really good friend of mine played football at UPenn, wrestled at UPenn. We grew up together. We're at the wedding. He's asked me about the business. He said, why don't you open up an actual facility and start training athletes? Because I used to train with Joe DeFranco when I was in college. He did. Joe D was kind of like a legend in the field up in North Jersey. So, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. Let me do that. Let me give it one more shot before I throw in the towel completely. Started looking for commercial units, find one. It's 2010, right? And start looking for that. We come in, I connect with, we're still back in that industrial park. A friend's mom who does commercial real estate. So headed into 2011, I said, okay, I'm going to open a facility. So I got it was 1,140 square feet. And a lot of delays trying to open this thing. And I remember just, for me, it's not very, very common to get panic or anxiety. But remember, as it's approaching, right, I'm teaching, I'm still training people in the basement. trying to work this out. The township wanted these specs for the flooring I was getting as rubber flooring, which didn't exist, and they're delaying me, blah, blah, blah. And I just keep pushing ahead. And I remember, so March we started moving stuff over there. My buddies would help me, and it was just nuts. But we start moving stuff over there. April comes. Me and Devin are scheduled also to get married that summer. And still going ahead. And finally, that's when I've never been the type to ask for permission. I don't like when people tell me what to do unless I ask them what I should do. But I am very coachable. But nonetheless, I remember figuring out very early, stop asking the town for permission. Just go. I don't care what they say, I'm opening. And that's what I wound up doing. But at the same time, as part of my change in the business, I told all the women clients that I had that, hey, I'm just going to be training athletes and some select men. So, sorry about that. No longer going to train you. And basically, I cut half my clientele going into a facility. Now, the square footage in the facility that actually that was usable was about 700 square feet. And I had that thing packed with equipment. But I remember when I officially opened, right, driving from school over there, be like, man, how am I going to pay for all this equipment? And getting really like anxious about it the one day driving home. Like, man, what am I going to do? Because everything I would make from teaching, I would reinvest into my education and equipment. Literally, everything would go right back into that. I bought Devin a wedding ring, so obviously that was part of it. And people start calling. People start coming. Still advertising, figuring out advertising. I had an original cartoon of me that was pretty primitive. I should post that picture. It's like giant bald head. Pretty funny though, but I would use that in the advertisements. It always attracted me when you had like these cartoon characters. And I remember the first night when it was really packed at the gym. At that point we had changed logos a few times, and then I started doing business as Newell Strength. I just selected the current logo. I remember posting that on the early Facebook years, taking a vote, guys, which logo do you like better? But I remember that first night when it was packed, there was like 10 guys in one session, and it was rock and roll. We're outside doing sleds, and the music's blasting. I remember getting home that night too, and just being so wired, man, so high on life and my decision. I was like, all right, you got this. This is really it's gonna work. And reputation starts taking off. I actually did a paid seminar that first year too. Actually, it was that fall. I had people come out from Ohio. I taught about 10 people my training methodologies, which I should do that again. I haven't done one of those since. But I was like, I'm going to see, I know a ton about training. I'm going to offer a one-day seminar. People come out, and that's what we did. So that was just part of it, right? A lot of different cool movie nights that first year. Really, it was a wild, wild west. Now, mind you, that summer too, I had Gabe Lincoln, who was my intern, who just found me randomly. He was reading articles on Elite FTS. I used to write for all these websites, just getting my work, my name, and my theories out there wherever I could. He comes out, I want to intern with you. All right, I can't pay you, but let's go. And we used to wear just camo shirts, no logo or nothing, and that was our uniform that first summer, that first spring. But me and Devin have our honeymoon for Fiji scheduled in July, and I'm like, man, business is busy now. What am I going to do? And I said, Gabe, I'm going to pay you for these couple weeks. Just make sure everything's still standing. Now, we're working with different sports teams, different programs, different clients at the time. And looking back, right, it seems like it was crazy, and it probably was crazy, but it worked. I went to Fiji for 10 days, came back, got back into the business. It was just faith that everything was going to work. Now, that next fall, Gabe went back to study abroad in Italy. So it's back to just me. So I'm, again, training people in the early mornings, teaching, driving right to the gym, training people all night. We're doing this day in, day out. I remember being so physically tired sometimes on the drive. I'd have to drink like energy drinks just to stay awake at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Once I got training people, though, my energy would come back and life would come back into me. So I'm doing this, right? I'm doing this, and it's working. And there was a couple seminars I went to that fall. out in Ohio. I think there was one maybe down in Atlanta. But I would drive to a lot of these, right? I would drive to a lot of these by myself, and I would tell Dad, I'm going to another seminar. Okay, she knew what I'm just going, I'm learning from people. Again, I don't have another coach at the time. Don't have any staff. So I'm telling, it's Jacques Cousteau and Rip Van Winkle and some of these guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to leave you the workouts. You open up, make sure you guys do the workout. I'll be back in like 3 days. And that's what I would do. So I would have actual clients who would become good friends run the gym, right? And I mean, still, we don't really put the heat on there just so the pipes don't freeze. That's really what we do. We never put the air on. But at that point, I would leave the garage door open all winter too. You'd have to wear a snow cap and you'd be seeing your breath. I wanted that certain environment. And I wanted that Rocky IV environment. And it was really good. And by the end of that, man, it was pretty quick. Trying to think of the timing. Within a couple months, I outgrew that place. So we had to move to another spot. So we move over. It was about a year, let's say. We move over to another spot. Spring of 2012. One block over. Move into that spot. Now, Gabe's back from study abroad. Again, I'm literally sleeping like 4 or 5 hours a night at this point. Because I was so passionate about what I was doing. I'd wake up at like 4 in the morning, sometimes 3:30. I remember people, texting people, like, what the hell are you doing up at this time? I would study. I would train people, go teach, go back to the gym. And sure enough, that catches up to me, right? 2012 in April of that year, and I'll be mindful of time. This is a lot longer than I normally go, but I'm enjoying sharing this with you. Again, this is only going to be the first 5 years. In April, I developed playing a men's basketball league game. It's like a Monday night. And I remember that night just being, holy crap, I'm sore. What the heck is going on? And I remember cramping really bad. It was either, just like on the floor in pain and just cramping. And start getting really sore to the touch. Next day I wake up, I'm like, man, something's not right. Devin says, why don't you stay home? She was a teacher too in the same district. So I stay home. So now it's like a Tuesday. She's checking in on me throughout the day. I think I still train people that day. That night though, she said, we got to go to the doctor. My temperature was like 103 or 104. And I remember you couldn't even touch my head. Everything hurt. Get to the doctor, like, man, you got a bad case of pneumonia. I'm like, oh. So I get pneumonia. And Gabe says, I got this. I'll cover the gym for the week. You'll be good. I'm like, and I knew that was kind of God's way of telling me, hey, slow down a little bit. Slow down. So rested for a week. The next week, we actually had a trip planned down to South Carolina for our spring break to go see my aunt and uncle. Start feeling better. I remember at the time, it's funny, I had to wear a mask on the plane. This is way before this mask nonsense. I had to wear a mask on the plane though because I had pneumonia. And I was recovering, but I was very, I had a bad case. Like my lungs were I was starting to recover at that point, but it was pretty dangerous. So they said, wear a mask on the plane so you don't pick up anything else. Do that, feel good in the sunshine, come back, start feeling, okay, I'm ready to go. Start working out, that Monday, Tuesday, I have another men's league game. So I was in 2 different leagues at the time. And it's a late night game. Shouldn't have been playing. I don't know what else. I was within 2 weeks of really the onset of pneumonia, but I just had this mindset, push through. Lungs felt okay, but I'm running down the court. It's like 9:30 at night, chasing one of my students because I'm still teaching at the time. Her dad, he's on another team that was really good. We had a really good team too. And boom, my right leg just explodes. I'm like, oh. Man, I had no idea what was wrong, but I knew it was bad. Ambulance comes, they call the game. Guys are coming over to look at my leg, and they're walking away, these grown men, covering their eyes. And I'm like, man, something ain't right. And I remember just telling the one dude, is my leg turning color? Because I was nervous that I completely dislocated my leg and that I was going to lose circulation. So I'm thinking like amputation with my leg. You got to get this fixed. Ambulance comes. They're like, man, if you have to vomit, dude. I go, why would I have to vomit? But I was in extreme pain. I'm not going to go too far into that injury right now. That was a whole thing. Pneumonia, and I wound up rupture on my patella tendon, snapping the tendon in half. Not an avulsion fracture where it comes off the bone. Snapped the tendon in actually 4 pieces, vertically and horizontally, and 5 other ligaments. Get to the hospital, late night, take the next day off. Obviously, we had to go see different surgeons and make our choice. Ruptured patella tendon. They told me that night in the hospital, and I never even heard of that at that time. And I knew a lot about the human body, and I remember just crying because I was like, this is bad. How am I, my whole life, right? I'm a phys ed teacher. I own a gym, and I can't use my leg. And I remember just being like crushed, but like, what am I going to do? And there's an old video on YouTube of me actually training in the wheelchair, and put a seminar on that first weekend. I had a scheduled fat loss seminar, and I put it on at the gym. I sat in a wheelchair, my leg is braced out and all wrapped up, and I would go in and I would train people in the wheelchair. Thank God I had Gabe to help me. And that's what I did. But I was out the remainder of the school year, so like 2 months. I mean, it was a bad injury. And we made it. We made it into that summer, rocking and rolling. Struggled a lot with that injury, recovering for it, but I still did what I had to do. And that took me into the summer of 2012. Basically, the summer of 2012. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. And I'm going to pick up with this next week because there's just so much with the story of Newell Strength that I'd like to share with you guys. So a lot of obstacles coming at that point, right? A lot of obstacles, but overcoming, figuring stuff out, newly married, but still trying to keep that edge. So that's what I got for you today. Next week, we'll go over from 2012. I don't know if we'll do all the way till present day, maybe the next 5 years. And on a side note, guys, I'm going to be doing a goal-setting workshop. You can attend online or in person. I'll be getting you the details by the end of the week, but I want to do that within the next 2 weeks. Get a pinpointed date because I want you to be armed before the end of this month. Before, let all the resolution mindset settle down. Then let's really get serious about this year, and I'm going to guide you through that strategy for the whole year for yourself. I'm looking forward to that. And I've got all my plans here. Got stuff everywhere. Real excited. And thanks for tuning in today. Hit the thumbs up, / like button. Leave a comment if you enjoyed that. And don't forget to go to kylenewell.com. You can check out some of my stuff over there as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.